Walter lived on the outskirts of a small town, far from the hustle and bustle of city life. His days were quiet and his interactions with others were few and far between. His home was a small faded house that had seen better days. The walls, once vibrant, were now dull and lifeless. The paint was chipping off, and the garden was a tangle of plants, overgrown and wild, much like the life he led. People sometimes saw Walter at the grocery store, moving slowly through the aisles, picking up only the essentials. He always seemed to be by himself, a solitary figure in a world full of connections. Neighbors would quietly talk about him amongst themselves, calling him that quiet man. They wondered about his story, but never asked. Some even thought he was odd, a mystery that they couldn't quite figure out. No one knew his past. No one bothered to ask. He was just a shadow in their lives. But Walter had lived a full life, filled with moments of joy and sorrow. He had stories that could fill volumes. He had loved and lost, experienced the highs and lows of life. Now he held his memories dear, each one a precious fragment of his past. He found comfort in his simple routines, the small tasks that gave his days structure and meaning. Christmas Eve arrived. The town was full of life. Lights sparkled on every house and Christmas songs drifted through the air. Families came together and the sound of laughter filled the streets. Walter remained inside. He watched the snow falling. He thought about Christmases in years past. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He felt a deep ache of loneliness. The sound of children playing reached him. He peeked through the curtains. They were making a snowman. He smiled softly, a brief moment of happiness. Later that night, the children were gone. The playground, once filled with laughter and joy, now lay silent under a blanket of snow. The streets were empty and the park was deserted, creating an eerie yet peaceful scene. The snowman stood by itself, a solitary figure in the quiet night. Its presence was a reminder of the fun and creativity that had taken place earlier in the day. One of its twig arms had fallen off, giving it a slightly forlorn appearance. Walter watched from his window, feeling a pang of sadness for the snowman. He remembered the joy of building it with his friends. An idea popped into his head. He put on his coat and stepped out into the cold, determined to bring some cheer back to the lonely snowman. He walked to the snowman, his breath visible in the frosty air. Gently, he fixed the broken arm, making sure it was secure. He found a smooth rock on the ground and used it to make a new smile on the snowman's face. The snowman now looked happy again, and Walter felt a sense of accomplishment. Walter went back inside, feeling the warmth of his home envelop him. He found a piece of paper and wrote a note, his handwriting neat and careful. "Merry Christmas," it said. He signed it, "A Friend," hoping to spread a little bit of holiday cheer to anyone who might find it. He went back outside and left the note at the base of the snowman. As he walked back to his house, he felt a warmth in his heart, knowing he had done something kind. Christmas morning arrived. The children ran outside, their laughter echoing through the crisp, cold air. The snow crunched beneath their boots as they dashed across the yard, their faces lit with pure joy. They saw their snowman. It was different, it was better. The snowman stood tall, adorned with a bright scarf and a hat, its eyes twinkling with a certain magic that hadn't been there before. They found the note and read it out loud. Their parents gathered around. Curiosity piqued. The note spoke of kindness, of understanding, and of the joy that comes from seeing the world through another's eyes. They looked towards Walter's house. A wave of understanding washed over them. They realized how much they had misjudged him, how their assumptions had clouded their view. They had been wrong about him. He wasn't strange, he was kind. The warmth of this realization spread through them, melting away the coldness of their previous judgments. That Christmas, Walter received a gift. A group of carolers stood outside his door, singing their hearts out. Their voices filled the air with melodies of joy and peace. He opened the door. He smiled. He wasn't alone anymore. The warmth of the community had finally reached him, breaking through the isolation he had felt for so long. Kindness had opened their hearts, and the spirit of Christmas had brought them together, showing them the true meaning of understanding and compassion.